Hello and welcome to SRIRAM's IAS. In this series, we are covering SRIRAM sir's book chapter by chapter, and in today's chapter, that is Niti Aayog, we discussed the one part of this chapter, that is the Planning Commission and Niti Aayog. In the second part of this lecture, we will be discussing about the differences between Planning Commission and Niti Aayog and what all steps and measures has Niti Aayog I would say taken in the journey since 2015 till now, and what happened all in the case of development. Now, before we start the discussion, here are the contact details on which you can connect to us, SRIRAM's IAS, and you will have more benefits in terms of, I would say, daily MCQs, mains answer writing, daily current affairs, weekly, monthly current affairs, and everything. Now, let's begin with the discussion. First of all, we will be discussing and revising what we all read in terms of Niti Aayog and Planning Commission. As we discussed earlier also, Planning Commission is a centralized body which was established for 5 years of, I would say, 5-year plans. In this, we discussed that Planning Commission actually worked for 1 to 12th 5-year plan, which started from 1950s to 2017. The most recent or the last 5-year plan was the I would say 12th 5-year plan. Understood? So that is why usually it is called as that this body was centralized body, while as Niti Aayog took a different approach which discussed that and thought that we should actually have a platform where all the states should have their say and they should discuss about the developmental agendas on the ground level. What are the developmental needs at ground level that should be taken into consideration at national level. Understood? Second, we also discussed that Planning Commission had a top-down approach, while as Niti Aayog works on a bottom-up approach, that is, the planning should be done from the ground level till the upper levels. Understood? State relations, the directive and centralized planning methodology, and the directives means that Planning Commission used to set targets, used to define that these are the directives which states should follow. For example, setting a growth rate of 9% or 8% or 6%. This was something a national objective, or setting an agenda that we will focus on agriculture, we will focus on industrialization. We also discussed about creating jobs, Garibi Hatao plan, family planning, everything, but that was all discussed and set, an agenda set by central level, not by the state level. But here in the Niti Aayog, cooperative federalism was more emphasized upon, and you will see in the next few slides that how cooperative federalism is actually working at the ground level. Understood? Directive allocation versus advisory role with state discussions. Second, plan execution monitoring and indices for competitive federalism. So thereby, Planning Commission introduced two things. One was cooperation between the states, another was competition between the states. By introducing that this state is performing at rank 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of cleanliness, all the states will now pursue what? That we should have the first rank in terms of achieving SDGs, in terms of having maternal mortality rate lesser, in terms of increasing the health indices, in terms of increasing the education indices. That is why Niti Aayog, to introduce competitive federalism, it introduced multiple indices for measuring development. We will be reading all of them in the discussion. What was the fundamental difference between the structure of Niti Aayog and Planning Commission? We should understand it. Planning Commission had a chairman, that was Prime Minister of India, with the deputy chairman and full-time members. This was dedicated exclusively to planning activities. However, this was more centralized in decision making, while as Niti Aayog has Prime Minister as the head with the governing council comprising of all the states chief ministers, and all the UTs with legislatures, their chief ministers, and what? Lieutenant governors. It also has a mix of full-time and part-time members, including experts from various fields. Thereby, Niti Aayog also has a regional provision. We also discussed it earlier, that it has a regional provision of establishing regional councils, but yes, we have yet to be, these are yet to be decided and yet to be established. In the recent most 10th Governing Council meeting, which was held in 2025 itself, this Governing Council meeting discussed about some of the main aspects that how we should, this is the most recent meeting, and this discussed about that how we should actually pursue for a developed India by 2047. You might have also seen that there are multiple videos on our other channels of SRIRAM's IAS talking about this agenda, that will India be developed by 2047. That should be referred to, and you should also see. There was one good video done on the main channel by Mayank sir, and you should go to that video and look for that. The 10th Governing Council meeting in mid-2025, the 10th Governing Council meeting in 2025 themed as Viksit Rajya for Viksit Bharat 2047. Now, this means that if the states are developed, then only India will be developed. Thereby, it focused on state-led implementation of national missions. Like at the national level, whatever agenda we set, it should be implemented at the state level. For example, in this meeting, it was discussed that we should focus on 3 main parameters. First is manufacturing mission, second is implementation of National Education Policy 2020, and third is urban development. Now, this is the recent most meeting, and in this meeting, it is discussed that what should we do for the next 22 years till 2047. Understood? In terms of manufacturing, states are urged to ease the regulations and build industrial capacity, as was discussed at the national level, to do ease of doing business. National education policy, because most of the states in southern India and in the I would say West Bengal also and multiple other states, they were resisting on implementing the national education policy because and signing the MOUs in terms of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, and in terms of this PM Shri schools. There was some kind of contention between them. We will be discussing it, and you will also be discussing it in governance and schemes of the government. It's hardly a subject matter over here, but you should read about it. One more thing, that is urban development, that how city planning should be done and how infrastructure should be done. In the states, it is expected that states should take some of the measures, like first of all, infrastructure and environment should be taken into consideration while discussing river interlinking projects, natural farming and urban challenge fund empowering the city planning. So thereby, in this meeting, it was discussed that how urban planning can be improvised upon. Social development, it was discussed that digital health access should be provided to all. Maybe you might have observed this thing, that whenever you go to a hospital, they will ask you, or if you do an online appointment at hospital, they will ask you about Aadhaar registration or health ID or this unique ID, which is usually termed as health ID. Now, they might be asking you about this. This is only to have digital health access. Further, through e-Sanjeevani system also, you should look for this e-Sanjeevani system. This is an online platform where you can go and seek for yourself that how you can go for treatment of your diseases and where should you look for the doctors. It has all the information about that. Women's workforce inclusion and tourism promotion, and in terms of internal security, it was discussed that how we should operate at the state level after the Operation Sindoor. The Operation Sindoor, which was done in 2025 itself, this was something which changed the course of Indian history. And if you, Indian history in terms of internal security, if you think about it or search about it, you will see the recent most statement by our army chief. He said that Operation Sindoor is still on. And this Operation Sindoor is something which actually has a target of destroying whole terrorism, even in the illegally occupied territory of Pakistan. Of the Jammu and Kashmir by Pakistan, in the illegal, the territory which is illegally occupied by Pakistan, in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. In that state, the illegally occupied Kashmir, which you might have heard or you might have read about it, the Muzaffarabad wala region, there you can find out that there were various terrorist hideouts on which this Operation Sindoor was launched, and this is still on. For this, state should also take measures. All the bordering states in the northwest and in the northern border, or all the Himalayan states, they should be taken into consideration, because from there the most threats of terrorism and northeast insurgency, they do fuel these internal disturbances in India. Done? Now, what are the key achievements of Niti Aayog till now? First of all, Niti Aayog has a 15-year vision plan, that is for 15 years the development trajectory of India, how should India develop, 7-year strategy, a medium-term strategic framework, and a 3-year short-term plan. This was the broad understanding or broad strategy which Niti Aayog actually formed. Under this, we took multiple initiatives, like for urban transformation, we had Amrut. Amrut is a transformation of city infrastructure. Understood? In Digital India, we discussed, or we have Digital India mission for Digital India technology driven India and connecting all the panchayats and all the blocks digitally through optical fiber. Atal Innovation Mission was launched for innovation and empowerment in terms of entrepreneurship. Medical education reforms for transforming healthcare and health education system in India. Further, agriculture was also reformed, and there were multiple laws, model laws for leasing or land leasing laws, contract farming. There were multiple laws which were brought in, and we should read about it, and we will be reading about it in the chapter of agriculture itself, that how many laws and how many reforms in terms of agricultural policy have been brought in. APMC reforms for mandis, all the APMC mandis which were integrated, and ENAM was also launched. Agricultural Marketing Index was also launched for farmer friendly policies and to have access to market prices and real time access to market prices, so that farmers can fetch better price and increase their income, as we had the goal of doubling the farmer income by 2022. These were some of the measures which were taken. And the performance measurement level, Niti Aayog introduced multiple indices in terms of health index or health indexes, or index, education index and water management index. Now, these were launched at national level along with other indices also. Broad parameters are health, education and water management. However, there are multiple other indices which were launched. Cooperative federalism was installed, or not installed per se, was ensured through Chief Minister's subgroup, Swachh Bharat Mission, the schemes recommendation and centrally sponsored schemes and skill development through training initiatives. Now, we will be going through this in detail, that how actually Niti Aayog is providing. It's not actually implementing, it's a policy guideline think tank. We should always remind ourselves that it is just a think tank and it has an advisory role to make policies. The implementation of the policies and adoption of the policies still is with the executive, that is the ministries and the bureaucracy from top level till the ground level. Now, in terms of this, multiple states have taken steps, like Niti Aayog actually identified 117 aspirational districts. I remember, and for these a program was launched known as Aspirational District Program. Now, these were those districts which were lagging in terms of development. They were underdeveloped districts. So, thereby what steps were taken? First is the convergence. Convergence, that is coordinating multiple schemes and implementing all the programs together so that maximum impact can be created. For example, a village named Ratnagiri in India or in the suburbs somewhere. Now, see, the population over here is lacking access to public distribution system. Understood? That means they do not have ration cards. Due to this, due to this, they do not have access to adequate food. That is why their children and adults are forced to go for labor. Now, due to this, there is child labor and there is low gross enrollment ratio. Along with this, there is high dropout ratio. Understood? Now, once you understand this, that there is high dropout ratio, there is more, this population hereby becomes susceptible and is now malnourished. If this population is malnourished also, it means now the population is having a sentiment that is anti-government, because they are feeling relatively deprived. They are having relative deprivation. Now, once this sentiment is fueled, it is harnessed and capitalized by all those who are anti-state actors. Now, imagine that if this village is located in a left-wing extremism influenced region. Now, imagine that this population, if they get even 100 rupees incentives from someone who is trying to install anti-state, anti-government ideology into this village, now will they be sympathized, or will they have I would say sympathy, or will they be more inclined towards the ideology of that group or not? Yes, because of all these developmental. That is why now, even if we are good at implementing public distribution system, we are good at having education better, we are good at having malnourishment or children, it is not enough. We must have everything in place. That is, every scheme must be coordinated, because say for ration cards and food we have public distribution system. This is another scheme targeted public distribution system. For labor, child labor, we have different laws which are implemented by other things. Like for example, for child labor, we must have at least, in order to remove child labor, we must have schools in place. We must have the hostels where we will board these students who are taken from child labor and now admitted into schools. We must have Anganwadi centers to give them adequate nourishment, and then only this problem can be sorted. We must have implementation officers also and juvenile courts also. Now, this requires a whole mechanism. That is why cooperation, convergence and competition and collaboration, all of this was important to understand. That it is not just one side or one problem which we need to address. We need to address all of it. That is why we need to converge all the steps, all the schemes together, then only we can achieve this. Understood? That is why these two programs, Aspirational Block Program and Aspirational Districts Program, was launched. And in this Aspirational Block Program, 40 key performance indicators were tracked, and implementation approach was that each block will prepare a time-bound plan which is tailored to the local needs. Whatever local problems are there, that will be used using digital tools, and these problems will be solved through these plans. Understood? Now, this will be implemented by Panchayati Raj institutions and multiple other, I would say, local level, either that is district administration, village administration or block level administration. They all will collaborate together. They will try to, I would say, calculate and manage and measure their health, education, agriculture, infrastructure and other social developmental parameters. Understood? Done. Niti Aayog indices. Indices for competitive federalism. As I said, indices or index is made to ensure that there are benchmarks for improvement. If I ask you that you need to track your performance in test series, Suppose you are in every week or on every Sunday giving one sectional test and you are measuring your numbers, that in the first test I scored 50 marks, in the second test I had 55, then 60, then 70, then 75, then 20, then 30, then 40, then 55, then 28. Now these numbers, they do represent us a graph which will be used to understand that where is the student going wrong. That is why we need these indices. Now the first is SDG India Index. This was one of the first in world. This was the first sub-national index to measure SDG achievements, Sustainable Development Goals achievements at national level. What are Sustainable Development Goals and what are Millennium Development Goals? We already have read them in the development chapter, that was second chapter. This is world's first sub-national SDG measure. In a federal system, states must lead SDG achievements. Niti Aayog developed this index, the world's first government-led sub-national measure of SDG progress. First, it was measurement scale. It measures the development from 0 to 100, where 100 means that target has been achieved, while as 0 means that this target has not been achieved. Comprehensive coverage, it covers all the states and union territories across all the SDG goals. I would say, a day or two back, I discussed about what should be the right approach for this prelims. And in that 20 minutes of strategy session, I discussed that how a student should approach this exam, because it is highly pertinent that 3 or 4 things must be there. I discussed these 4 or 5 things in the video itself, but out of that, one thing which I just recalled was that you must note down wherever you find all the extremes. What are extremes? See, if I tell you there is only one person in the world, named Trump, maybe I might be wrong, because there might be tens and thousands of people named Trump. If I tell you that there is only one such remote which works on a digital board of this company Gladwin, there is only one such remote in the world which works on this digital board, that is Gladwin. Now, I might be wrong. Similarly, these are those extremes which usually are thought that they are wrong, but it should be understood that India can be first in terms of, I would say, launching an SDG index. India can be first in terms of pulses production. India can be first in terms of rice exports. India can be first in multiple other things. Or I would say China can have world's largest resources of something. Now these are extremes. These extremes must be noted. Wherever it comes, all, only, this much, everywhere, everything. Now these are extremes. They must be noted in your copy of errors. What is copy of errors? I have discussed it all. So the whole point of this 2-minute discussion was, you should be serious about, whenever you read, whenever you learn anything, you should be serious about that, what to note and what not to note. That's it. Bas. What to remember and what not to remember. So thereby, wherever it comes, tracks all the states and UTs across all the SDGs. This statement, usually when it comes to your paper, it might seem that it is a normal statement, or it is wrong statement, or it is extreme statement, but this is true. Public dashboards are provided for visualization, and annual updates are, I would say, annually the index is updated to track the performance. In 2023-24 state performance, Kerala retained the top position in terms of SDG achievement. Uttarakhand had second position, and Bihar featured at the bottom of this intervention. Understood? Next indices, multidimensional poverty index. Now we will be discussing it today only, and we will be revising it in the next lecture. What is multidimensional poverty index? And we shall be revising this index in the poverty chapter also. Lately we discussed about the we have not taken the chapter of poverty, but yes, we must understand that multidimensional poverty, what it means and how we should discuss it. But yes, we have already discussed about what are maternal mortality, what is child mortality, what is infant mortality, what is health indices, what is education, how is education measured, because we discussed it in development chapter. Now remember that Niti Aayog launched a multidimensional poverty index at national level. At the international level, it was OPHI, Oxford Poverty, this Oxford Poverty Group, which actually launched this index. So what is multidimensional poverty? Multidimensional poverty means that if a person is deprived, is not having access to multiple amenities of life, to multiple, I would say, parameters, like for example, if he is deprived in terms of health, if he is deprived in terms of education, if he is deprived in terms of having clean fuel, that is what makes his life miserable. That is where poverty comes in. See, if a person is deprived of income, of having money or having income, then he is poor on the parameters of income. But a person can be having, for example, an income of 10,000 rupees per month or an income of 5,000 rupees per month, but still he is not having access to a good house, he is not having access to a good health, he is not having access to cleaner fuel, or having, or his, I would say, child mortality rate in his family is more. Now that is where this multidimensional poverty index comes in place. Now remember that multidimensional poverty index discusses about different deprivations which are faced by people in daily life across, I would say, health, education and living standards. Now remember, what is head count ratio? Head count ratio is all the people who are below the poverty line. Simple. All the people who are termed as poor. You count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they are poor. Now what is intensity of poverty? That is how much poor is a poor. How much poor is a poor? That if he is, suppose we have set 32 rupees as the poverty line. As the poverty line. Now if a person is earning only 30 rupees, if a person is earning only 30 rupees, then he is also poor. But if a person is earning only 3 rupees, now he is also poor. Now who of them, A or B, is more poor? Now this intensity of poor for B, or poverty for B, is more than intensity of poverty for A. That is why to, I would say, uplift A from poverty, or to bring him out of this poverty line from the BPL category to the APL category, it needs only an income of rupees 2. Understood? Maybe upskilling him or giving him a job or giving him 200 rupees, I would say, wages from Manrega, or giving him a 100-day employment of Manrega will bring him out of the poverty. That is how he will earn a bit more. But yes, this person cannot be helped by such a small gesture. Understood? Now, global level multidimensional poverty index was brought in by OPHI, that is Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, and UNDP, that is United Nations Developmental Program. The inclusion of UNDP's Human Development Report. This multidimensional poverty index was included into Human Development Report. Human Development Report 2025 was discussed in the development chapter itself in this series only. Since 2018, this global MPI provides guidance for implementing and monitoring SDG 1, that is ending poverty in all of its forms. The global MPI scrutinizes all the deprivations over 10 indicators. Remember, there are only 10 indicators at global level, but at national level, in India's national, this multidimensional poverty index by Niti Aayog, we have 12 such indicators. Understood? Now, what are the indicators which are different between the global and Niti Aayog? First is this maternal health, and another is access to bank account. Understood? This is 12th and this is 11th. Rest 1, that is nutrition and child mortality 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Understood? These are the 12 parameters of National Multidimensional Poverty Index. Clear? Now this was released by Niti Aayog in 2021. It defines poverty as deprivation or multiple simultaneous deprivations across health, education, living standards. It is developed in consultation with the 12 line ministries, state governments, OPHI and UNDP. All of them are collaborating together to develop this index. Understood? MPI has 12 indicators and all the 12 indicators have been discussed. This also has been discussed that they are the additional indicators compared to global level, I would say, multidimensional poverty index. One more thing, how is the data sourced for multidimensional poverty index? The data which is accessed and analyzed for this index is taken from National Family Health Survey. The 4th and the 5th one was from, this is the most recent one. Its report was released in 2023. It shows significant poverty reduction in India. Further, multiple flagship schemes have been launched for sanitation, for cleanliness, for access to living standards, or having maternal health, decreasing the maternal mortality, increasing the, I would say, gross enrollment ratio. The data from those schemes is also used. MPI enables poverty estimation at state and district level, facilitating target intervention. Its report highlights significant reduction in poverty and interstate differences. Understood? So from, I would say, starting till now, we have discussed all the things regarding the Niti Aayog. Now we are left with some of the indicators, and in this there will be around 12 to 15 such indicators or 12 to 15 such indices which we shall be discussing in the next lecture. That is the School Education Quality Index, the State Health Index, the Composite Water Management Index and multiple other indices, whether that is logistics or any other. We will discuss them in the next lecture. Till then, I wish you all the best. Thank you for joining in here. Jai Hind.